So I was here when we saw the entire cycle of PR, pattern recognition, which is actually the entire cycle of machine learning. In machine learning, you collect data. Based on the data and the domain knowledge that you have, you will select the features. Based on the features, you will choose a model for classifier, which is internal. Till here, you have to intervene. After this, the model is a CNN or DeepNet or whatever you want to do. Then you have to train the classifier on the data that you have collected. You have to evaluate the classifier. And then next you will do testing, verification. A trained network is used to solve other problems also. Okay. Yeah. So a lot of steps. Every step is equally important. But two of the most important steps are these two, which is where today a lot of automatic data collection happens because a lot of sensors. Every place is filled with sensors which collects data whether you like it or not. But feature selection is definitely a human intervention, an expert. This also you can have multiple models, all that. Okay? So we saw this. And then we looked at this, what kind of models. Now these are not 5 alone. In unsupervised learning and clustering, there are 12 options. Similarly, here, okay? And we saw this. So, based on what Arul has done, we will see what is this idea of a subspace method. A subspace method independent of what I want to do is this. So the main idea is to seek more accurate data representation in a lower dimensional space. It is exactly opposite of the kernel method. So we'll take a two-dimensional example, which is very illustrative, and follow it up with actual problem. You see here, there's x-axis, y-axis. In general, it will be dimension 1, dimension 2, because the total number of dimensions will be close to 1000 or 2000. So I cannot write x, y, z, all that. Okay. Now you see, look at these points, data points. These are all some data points in two-dimensional space. I want to represent it in a lower dimension. Lower than 2 is 1. 1 dimension is a line. So suppose I have a line like this. I want to represent all these points on the line. I have to project the point onto the line. Project this point onto the line, this onto the line, this onto the line. And I have to do an orthogonal projection. And angle is 90 degrees. Okay. I do that. And I want to see whether this line gives me a reasonably one-dimensional representation of the points. Please remember, one moment I do one-dimensional representation, the following happens. For every point, there is an x-coordinate, y-coordinate. That is dimension 1, dimension 2. 2 points. And I have 3 plus 3, 6 plus 2, 8. 8 into 16, 8 into 2. 16 numbers I have to give to collect all this data, represent that. Suppose I put it on one line, I don't have to give 2 coordinates. If I give one coordinate x value, y value is immediately picked up because the line y equal to mx plus c is already there. Therefore, the idea of putting a line here in one dimension is to give me 50% reduction. So I only need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, either x coordinate or y coordinate, normally x because x is independent variable. So I give 8 coordinates value and I pick up the remaining 8 consequently because y is equal to mxi plus yi, I mean c. yi is equal to xi plus c. M and c are identified and that's on the line. So this is the idea of principal component or projecting onto subspace. Now the question is not that I cannot do, the question is what is the error that I do? This point is represented here. So the error is length of this squared plus length of this squared, length of this squared, length of this squared, etc., etc. Square all the lengths of this and take the square root of the square. That is the total error that I do. On the other hand, instead of this line, look at this line. This is also a line in 2 dimensions. It's a one-dimensional representation because x and y are not independent. Now I do the same thing. Instead of putting this line, I put this line here. This line, green one. And I do the same. I project this onto this, this onto this, this onto this, this onto this, so on. And I now find what is the error in the representation. Error in the representation is almost zero, this is almost zero, this is almost zero, this is almost zero, almost zero, almost zero here. This length squared plus this length squared square root. Very small error. So what it means is this line is a very good representation of all these 8 data points with a very small error. So this line is a good line to project these points. So typically, as we see in physical experience, very large dimension data, if you can find a good, this is a line in 2 dimensions, it would have been a plane in 3 dimensions, it would have been a hyperplane in n-1 dimension. Therefore, suppose I have data in very high dimension, which is, let's say, a typical face, let's say 100 by 100 size face, 100 pixels by 100 pixels. So each point of the data there lives in a space of 100 cross 100, which is 10,000. So you have every point of that face there, which is a 10,000 dimension data point. I don't need this. After all, on your mobile phone, sometimes 8 cross 8 image is good enough. So 64 dimensions is good enough, whereas the data is in 10,000. But the interesting thing is the following. Which 64 dimensions of space of the 10,000 dimension space will give you very accurate representation of the face image, let's say with about 1 or 2%. That's the idea. So the idea is living in a high dimension space, where are the interesting subspaces, and this interesting subspace is not universal. The interesting subspace relates to the data. The data is like this, so the interesting subspace is this line. Suppose I put a line like this, projection error will be worse than this. So all these interesting directions depend on the way of data, meaning how are the data correlated. I capture information by looking at data, in what direction it is correlated, put a line along that direction, project the data onto that direction along that line, collect a compressed, reduced dimension, but high accurate representation. That is the idea of principal component analysis. We'll come to that. Okay, that's one subspace. There are many others. Okay, notice that the good line to use for projection lies in the direction of largest variance. Okay. So we projected it like this, the black went to green, and I rotated it, all of them look like this. Note that the new data Y has the same variance as old data X in the direction of green line. So what the principal component analysis does, preserves largest variance in the data. We will not prove this, statistically it can be proved, but you see here, suppose I have a data in 3D, it's like this. The best two-dimensional approximation of this is this ellipse. The best one-dimensional approximation of this is this line. So I now live in a 100 or 200 dimension space. I see what is the best 90 dimensional representation, what is the best 80 dimensional. So I see what is the minimum. For example, you are looking at images on a mobile phone. For me, 8 cross 8 is enough. I don't want 64 cross 64, 128 cross 128, all that. But I leave it for video, DVD, and other things. So given the problem, I want to know which is the best, lowest dimensional representation of that. When I say lowest, accuracy, minimum error, whatever, all those are parameters. Okay, we'll come to that. So typically what happens in this thing is training. As you train, the error goes down, but too much training is also not good. We'll come to that. You see here, anything, training error goes down as training time increases, but after a certain critical point, just like the number of clusters, everything, the number of features also, the testing error goes down. So you have to be very careful about overfitting and underfitting. Normally, the mistake done is overfitting. Okay, this is really what it is. When do you stop training? You may not know. You must try this, and then decide. Then again start training. So, what is the minimum training needed to perform very well? So, a bad example for this is Rahul Dravid. I think Rahul Dravid actually failed later because he was over training. Every time he fails, he didn't take Yuvraj Singh's example of going and having a party and relaxing. He went, and even when it was raining, he would go and train in the night, under the light, all that. I think this happens to many people who overexert themselves, over anxious, prepare everything for the exam, and then don't do well. Okay, this excess training behavior is quite common even in humans. Okay, this is see. When do you stop? This is training curves. This is testing. This is a third party validation. This is the train. Okay? Validation data need not be from you. That's another problem we have with researchers. They test on their own data and they get very good performance. But on international database like NIST or any of them, their performance is very poor. You must be careful. You must always be judged by a universal standard. Okay? So, we look at PCA, we'll also look at other subspace. You see here, simple algorithm of PCA, we get data, x coordinate, y coordinate data. Okay, these are 10 points whose x and y coordinate. I have plotted the data here. See, this is 0, 0, this is the x axis, this is the y axis, two-dimensional data points are here. Okay. 10 data points. What does PCA do? First thing it says is take the average of x coordinates, take the average of y coordinates, subtract the average of x, that is mean of x from all x, mean of y from all y, and the adjusted data looks like this. You see here suddenly you have negative coordinates coming, which was not there. Okay. Then this data adjust is there. Take data adjust transpose. This is 10 cross 2. Matrix is 10 cross 2, 10 rows and 2 columns. Transpose is 2 cross 10. So 2 cross 10 times 10 cross 2 and divide by 1 by 10, which is a scaling factor. You get 2 cross 2. 2 cross 10 into 10 cross 2 will give you 2 cross 2. This is the covariance matrix. Covariance of the data matrix. Always you will see covariance of the data matrix will be a symmetric real matrix. A11, A22 are different. A21 and A12 are same. Aij is Aj, symmetric matrix. Once you have a real symmetric matrix, life is 90% easy. The moment you have real symmetric matrix, we know the following. Eigenvectors are linearly independent. And if the eigenvalues are different, the eigenvectors are orthogonal. If they are orthogonal, they can always be made orthonormal by dividing it by length. So, the moment you get a real symmetric matrix, don't solve the problem. Relax, go to a hotel, meet your friends, have good dinner, sleep well. Next day morning, everything will work. Don't worry. Okay, so this is the idea of doing things on matrices. I calculate the eigenvalue and eigenvectors of these. These are the two eigenvalues and corresponding eigenvectors. You can see eigenvectors minus 0.73 and 0.67 are the first eigenvector. Second eigenvector is minus 0.67 and minus 0. So you can see here this eigenvector and this eigenvector. If I take the dot product of that, it is 0. Therefore, this eigenvector and this eigenvector are orthogonal. Now what? Plot. If I plot all the points now, that is the matrix adjusted points, all the points which were there in the first quadrant here now are here located. Same points. It is mean shifting. It is like centering the data around x-axis and y-axis. So This is the same data with the same covariance and other information, which has just been shifted geometrically from here to here. This was the original x-axis, original y-axis. Now what are these two dotted lines here? These are the two eigenvectors. They are also a subspace. They are subspace because any line passing through the origin is a subspace in R2. This is a subspace, this is a subspace. The two subspaces are orthogonal to each other. Hello, can somebody mute audio? So now you see, you started with original x-axis and y-axis. Data was here. What the algorithm tells is, re-represent the data. Don't use the data as it is collected. Use it in a manner which suits the investigation. This is it. Now, don't use x-axis and y-axis. Use this coordinates. You see, use the first eigenvector. Project all the points onto that. See, almost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 of the 10 points are almost already on that line. So they give you 100% accuracy with 50% reduction in dimension. This you have to project here. This you have to project here. This you have to project here. This here, and this one here. So what the PCA tells you is, don't use, after all, x-axis and y-axis is a subspace. It says there are better subspaces in the space, and that better subspace knowledge comes from the data itself. In fact, what it is saying is, the data is saying, use me, modify me without spoiling my information content, readjust my data, and do surgery on me, extract the eigenvectors from inside me. I will now tell you which are the best directions in which I lie. In fact, you are not getting anything external. The data itself is supplying you the magic information. This is the advantage of subspace methods, where the data gives you the space, but if you manipulate the data, do all kinds of surgery on the data tells you there are some interesting inside me, use that and I will cooperate with you very well. This is what the PCA really does. Okay. So I do that, I project the data onto that. So the final data is the row feature vector with the row adjust data. I work that out. I get half this thing. We'll see how it works. This is the idea of doing subspace methods for data. This is phase data. What I have used is the international database called ORL. It has any problem? It has 40 users. We have used 10 samples of each. Of that, we use the first 6 samples for training and the remaining 4 for testing. This is how it is. So now this is the matrix data. Eigenvalue, eigenvector is vectors like this. So what we do, we take the first column, take the second column and keep that second column below the first column, third column below the second column. So you will convert n cross n matrix to n squared cross 1 column vector. That's how the eigenvectors are done, and reassemble it back. Okay. So this is how the data originally looks like. You see here, for those who are familiar with image processing, the grayscale image 0 to 255 grayscale value. This is how the total data distribution takes place. Okay. This data distribution is important because in machine learning, whenever answer is wrong or not good, you don't have to keep quiet. You can go and ask, is the question all right? That's the power of machine learning. You can actually get the question reframed. And many times when you ask the question once more, your answer becomes better. We'll come to that. Okay. So this is the data modified after mean subtraction. Okay. When you subtract and you see here now, instead of 0 to 255 grayscale, it has now become minus 255 by 2 to plus 255 by 2. Okay. This is the average of all the phases. Blur image. This is like the DC value. The first coefficient of the Fourier series, A0 by 2 term. So average of all the phases looks like this. We subtract this from every phase and do the covariance matrix, do eigenvalues. So finally, when we get all the eigenvectors and assemble it back, the phase looks like these are called eigenphases. The eigenphases are important because for those who have worked a little on images, particularly face images, you look at your forehead and cheek and all that data is redundant. There is no value in the data. Suppose you take forehead, 1 pixel of the forehead information is good because the rest of the forehead is uniformly the same. Similarly, the cheek. So what the eigenfaces pick up are actually information which are really varying and collected. And of all the 400 samples that we have taken, this is all that is important. The rest of them are simply combinations of this. I don't need all this information. These are critical information. These are hiding in the data. We cannot see this information from the face setup here. I cannot see this information. In fact, of these 10, if I take the eigenfaces of this, that's one information that's common with all of them, but not very obvious directly. That's been extracted from inside by eigenvalue, eigenvector analysis. Okay, and we test it again as a column vector, even though you can directly as an image, but that's a two-dimensional eigenvalue, eigenvector problem, which we need not worry right now. Okay, calculate the distance, that is error. See, calculate the Euclidean distance between training and testing. That is the actual data and the projected data. Take the difference, square it, add all of them and take square root. So in images, particularly in biometrics, the results are produced not in terms of actual percentage error by what is called the receiver operator characteristic, ROC. This is a plot of false acceptance rate versus false reject rate. False acceptance rate is that a genuine face, a false face has been accepted as true. False reject means a genuine face has been rejected. Okay, both are wrong. So this is how it is. For a false acceptance rate in percentage at 10 to the power minus 2, the genuine acceptance rate, which is 1 minus false acceptance rate, is about 30%. Like what we got in the first fish problem, 34% error, 34% accuracy something. So it got a low, what I want something like 99.9, okay? I got 32, 33. Is it enough? We will check. There are other subspace methods. For example, Fisher linear discriminant and independent component analysis, which has both ICA1 and ICA2, two flavors. One operates on the columns of the matrix, the other operates on the rows of the matrix. So it is another eigenvalue, eigenvector type of problem. We do the same thing. And these are the Fisher spaces. Similar to eigenfaces, Fisher faces. They are little different. Then the performance measure for that's also about 36, 37%. We also did 1 and 2. Both have different bases. One need not be orthogonal. As long as they are linearly independent, okay. There are two architectures, one on the row and column. Let's not worry. The performance, ICA1 gave me 50% almost. ICA2, again around 40, 43. But please remember, ICA1 and ICA2 did better than PCA, which means the following. The data that you have need not be very good with orthogonal eigenvectors. Even if they are non-orthogonal but linearly independent, they are better. So it just tells what kind of data is underlying it. Okay. This is not common. In some cases, you'll see later that orthogonal representation of basis vectors will give you better performance. It just depends. For example, most of your missiles and all the defense equipment, tracking objects, hitting, killing, all of them work very well when the eigenvectors or the basis vectors are orthogonal. That's why SVD and Gram-Schmidt is even built in hardware today. Okay. So what to do? We need at least 90% accuracy, genuine acceptance rate. We can consider more than one metric, that is more than one modality. For example, your identity card. You have a face, but when you go there, they will ask you to show your iris. Then they will ask you to give your fingerprint. Finally, they will ask you to sign. Then they will also give you a PIN number to verify your bank account, all this, okay? We can use many more, that is additional data, or we can do something else. Are you sure that you have done your best? Are you sure you have done your best? We'll see that. So these are some initial references. So what we did was, we had that, we knew that ICA does better than PCA. PCA gave me 32%, ICA gave me 49%. But why should I give up on subspace methods? We can do something else, okay? We had data, we had phase data. What we did, we have phase. Hello?
Network problem, sir. Mic issue is there.
Somebody
Hello?
speaking? Hello?
Yeah. Hello. Now it's clear, sir. Yes.
Yeah,
And
now
we
it's clear.
keep,
Okay, yeah. Yeah, ask the participants to mute it till at least 3:15 when we can take up questions. 3 o'clock, okay?
Okay.
Yeah. So we have phase, but we didn't use the phase data now. We converted the phase data into what is called the texture equivalent of phase. That's why when you take your fingers and rub your finger against the forehead and cheek, please do it. You will see that even though your photo looks very smooth, your cheek and forehead, but when you rub your hand and finger on your cheek and forehead, it is little rough. That's texture. Skin information is better represented in texture version rather than raw pixel information. So what we did, we took a Gabor, we did the Gabor transform of the data and took the texture equivalent of phase, that is one. Next, what we did was, we went back to this. You see here, that's why data has to be questioned all the time. We have to keep every portion of the problem intact before we comment anything. You look here, this is the data after mean subtraction. This was the original data, and original data, as all of you know, we modeled this like this, one Gaussian. Gaussian is interesting because the transformation of a Gaussian into Fourier domain is Gaussian. That's why everybody assumes a Gaussian noise, Gaussian data, etc., etc. Large data distribution is also like Gaussian because the central limit theorem, all that works. But we were very careful. Even after the transforming the data, mean centering, this is one Gaussian. Why not treat it as one Gaussian plus another Gaussian plus another Gaussian? This is called mixture model, which is another trick in machine learning. So far, till machine learning came up, nobody was using mixture model in computer science and engineering, even though mixture models were very common in statistics, and those people did not use it in any practical problem. You can see where all the issues come, okay? So, this is it. Same face image, ORL database, take the texture version of that, remodel the data as mixtures of Gaussian, but use the same subspace method. What subspace method? PCA, FLD, ICA1, ICA2. Do the classification, select. You see how the mixtures of Gaussian, this was the original data. We model it as mixtures of Gaussian, meaning we have to find different mean and variance for each mixture and also find what the result is. See here, not only we tested it on AR, the other ORL database, FACE database, Yale University database, and you see here, number of faces 10. We did PCA, which gave me 39%, but the same data, same algorithm, using texture information and marking it as a mixture model, meaning if I have one mixture, that is single Gaussian, I have not made it into a mixture. PCA using texture information, suddenly the performance which was 34% became 75. What does it indicate? It simply indicates that we have not understood the data correctly. We are simply running the algorithm. Now can I model the data better? 2 mixtures, 77. 3 mixtures, 80. 4 mixtures, 75. We have already done over mixturing, like overfitting. So what it means is the original data in its modified form of texture, model the data as a mixture model, use the simple PCA, I get 80% accuracy, and I was worried about 34% saying I don't know, it is not working, I will do something else. Don't do anything else. It is like bad student in the class. You say it's bad because he doesn't do your test well. That is how Einstein never got a degree in his life, because his teachers found him unfit. They found him unfit because they couldn't test him correctly. They couldn't evaluate him correctly. Same here. I have not done any complication. I have just re-questioned the modeling of data. I have taken a more accurate representation of the data as texture rather than pixel. I got 80%. So for 10 users, 15 users, you see here, ICA 1 and 2, which gave me 49%, gives me 77.5. This already gives me 80. This year gives 81, etc. So 86. So I want 99. What should I do? It tells me that if I now remodel the data, re-question the representation of data, and use the same algorithm, I am actually able to get better performance. The question is, can I improve further? I got up to 86. So other ICA1, ICA2, all that, the best performances. Okay. So overall, I got 81, 86.77. Log Geber mixture model based on ICA2 with 15 users gave me 86.77. This is the best. What should I do next? This is an ORL database which we had used. So the best around is again here 86.25. Okay. These are the characteristics. Don't worry. AR database, different. Let's not worry about these things. Okay. So how to do more? I have come up to 86.75, 87. I want 99. There are 2 ways to do that. Try some other technique. Next, try to improve this. One way to improve is to look at data which is supplementary or complementary. That's why nobody verifies any identity with one modality. You can verify somebody with 10 modalities very accurately, but that will take a lot of time. So that's why in all your identity cards, many times, you will have a face and a signature, or if you like Aadhaar, face, iris, signature, fingerprint, one or two more modalities. So put one more modality. On its own, it may give you 90%. This on its own will give you 90%. But together, it may give you close to 99 because some information in one modality not available is covered here. So what you need is little more. It is like a catalyst in chemistry. Two very large reactants don't react by themselves. 1 kg of iron with 1 kg of sulfur something. But till you put some nickel or titanium in 1 or 2 grams, suddenly the reaction starts. So we are now looking for another modality to give you that little extra which will make it 99, and we will see. Okay, we did that. We again use mixture model. We'll see where this thing came, feature extraction, all this, and the hypothesis. The mixture model, everything is done. Only thing we did was to estimate. We did what is called a random Monte Carlo simulation. We'll see that later. Okay, we'll come to that little later. So this is it. These are the distributions of palm print, and these are the distributions for face, and the distributions of face and imposter scores are like this. So genuine score and imposter score comes. Genuine imposter score is here. Genuine scores are there. I basically want a good separation between the two. It's like this here. You see, I want all the blue separated from red. Okay, blue are genuine score. These are imposter scores. I want a clean separation. You can see here, I cannot put any number of lines to separate. Any number of lines I put, this red and all is completely enmeshed in that. Okay. So how to check what we have done? Take an international standard database, NIST, which has fingerprint and face. There are 570 users, but there are certain databases which don't have the combination of face, speech, and palm print, which we created ourselves to test basically with 100 users, and trained and tested on this, finally verified on this, a third party evaluation. Okay. This is our performance. Okay, what was available between 65, 70, 75, 80 up to 85, you see we got it close to, is about 87 that we were reaching earlier, is about 99.9. Okay. Now, how does this happen, and where are all the issues involved? We will look at that. Okay. This is also a comparison of other methods, likelihood ratio method, weighted sum rule, which are all done by very big people like Anil Jain and Ram Chalapa and others. Our result was 99.87 with a variance of 0.06. What is interesting is uniformly in all the databases, our results were far ahead of theirs, and for those who work on such things, moving from 99.1 to even 99.2 is very difficult. And we have moved almost from 99.1 to 99.9, almost logarithmic performance improvement. You see here, I want a mixture model, and I use a expectation maximum algorithm to get this genuine and imposter scores. Okay. I want the mean and variance, sigma I and mu, mean and variance for each mixture, and for I equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, depending on number of mixtures, I have to evaluate the mean and variance of each Gaussian and take the combination of that. Okay. Having said all that, the performance is interesting because when does the separation happen? When does the separation happen here? I want a simple classifier. A simple classifier is a straight line which separates this from this. Okay. How does it happen? Just look at this. this table. Number of mixtures. 1 means no mixture, single Gaussian data original. What was the mean of the genuine score? Was 0.72. What was the mean of the imposter score? 0.68. What is the covariance between the two? 0.037. What do I want? I want very high of this, very low of this, and very low of this. Then separation is very good. 2 mixtures, 3 mixtures. You see, in 4 mixtures, this value is 0.75. This is 0.58. High of this, highest among all, lowest among all, and the lowest of this, which means this combination of face and fingerprint using 4 mixtures gives me the best. And lo and behold, just see how it separates. Separation between imposter score and genuine score. Single mixture, 1 Gaussian. Can I pass a simple classifier to separate the both without much error? Lot of error here. If I separate here, this part goes here, this part comes here. 2 mixtures, that is 2 models. If I separate here with difficulty, you see this part of the error goes into this, and this part of the error here comes into this. 3, very carefully I have to pass a line here, very delicately. 4, very simple, I can close my eyes and draw a line. So the simplest classifier separates very well when the mixture is 4. Mixture 5 is as bad as this. Mixture 6, if I use 6 mixture, it is worse than not carrying a mixture model. Heavily overfitted, marginally overfitted, correct fit, marginally underfitted, grossly underfitted, no mixture model. These are the various models for the data. I have not done anything about the analysis. I have just remodeled the data and the performance improves. Lot of computation, 30,000 to 40,000 iterations will have to do. That's the reason why most of the ML today is done either on the cloud where there is a GPU support, or to ML where you have a GPU processor on your desktop or laptop, whatever. Okay, too much of computation. Now, why does ML techniques seem to work better? One other point we need to discuss is this idea of Monte Carlo random simulation that we get. See, after all this, we are not sure how what's the kind of distribution, really data here, all that. So we did look at Monte Carlo methods, simulate. This is it. Okay. Random sampling, basically. Okay, we created a random sampling of all the data finally, and that helped us get this magic number of 99.87, like this. Okay, so what is this? The best case is 99.87 plus 0.06, which is 99.93. The worst case is 99.81. Okay, so that Monte Carlo simulation is like tossing a coin. Okay. Many times when we go look for some house in some locality, we finally reach some road and we don't know. We toss a coin and say, if it is head, we turn left. If it is tail, we turn right and take a chance. So finally, random sampling works. It's true. Okay. Why does ML technique work so well? It's suppose multi-pronged and multi-objective view of the problem, not just a single view. Which means you want to reach the house somewhere, some locality. You may not be interested initially by looking at the shortest path. Normally, what you do when you search for something, backtracking is more efficient because you know how to get back to where you were. That is shorter path. Whereas the first time you search is longer path because your objective is to locate a house or whatever. So, it supports a multi-pronged and multi-objective view of a problem, which means if there are 5 objectives, you may be able to solve satisfactorily using 4 of them. that may be a better solution than solving it with one object. Okay. This yields multiple ways and strategies to effectively address the solution to a problem. Okay. Given the fact that it can be iterative and recursive or both, allows for refinement and improved accuracy. So here we finally used PCA, ICA1, ICA2, which we initially did getting 30 to 40% accuracy. We didn't discard that. That was the main method with which we finally reached 99.9. Allows for multiple tools and techniques and concepts to be applied suitably across the problem space. So where is the problem space? Data, feature extraction, classifier design, evaluating the classifier, then building context. So at every point of this problem solution, you can look at new tools and techniques and concepts to be suitably applied. For example, when the performance was only 40% accurate, we went back to the data. We didn't question the algorithm. We went back to the data and said, okay, the data is there, but can I use the data in the texture form? Suddenly the performance improved to 80. Then we again went back to the data and said, okay, can I now look for mixture models? Yes, that gave me 87, 88. Then we went finally evaluation of the classifier. At that time we said, can we do random sampling? Which means you will experience this. Many teachers will experience this random sampling when you are doing corrections of answer booklets. You see the problem. You have some 2-3 days answer booklet. You correct 2-3 bundles, give the marks, seal it, and go. The third bundle you take, you find the answers to be better than what it was in the first 2 bundles. But then you realize you have already given some 18 out of 20 to many students in the first bundle. Whereas the answers in this bundle deserved 18. You cannot go back and give 16 there. What you will do, you will give 18 or 19 here. Basically, you are cheating both. One who deserved more, you are not able to give because earlier you gave more to one who you didn't know the complete distribution of answers. You had no idea how all the answers of all the students from end to end look like. So, if you are allowed to do a second time correction, you would have given 16 to the first 2 bundles for the answers, whatever it was. You would have given 18 to this. So, this resampling is not allowed. That is why a lot of unfair things happen. If resampling was allowed like what we did, excellent. Now you have a very good answer and you are fair, okay? Then allows for relook of even starting point like data and up to the final solution. So even at the final solution, you can do modifications without disturbing the information. Don't change the information content. If you change the information content, problem is wrong. Keeping the same information content, all kinds of remodeling, re-strategizing, modifying, transforming, everything is allowed. So in conclusion, mixture models outperform non-mixture model, etc. In general, machine learning are more qualitative and efficient results in terms of modalities like this. In general, for challenging image processing tasks and related tasks, good result means employing machine learning approaches. No doubt about that. Earlier they were applying, now video analytics, what is the focus of this? Everything. Today we have at least 12 machine learning companies in Bangalore, started by youngsters, already doing very well because they have already deployed such things. Okay. What are the implications for us? Curriculum, rapid improvement in quality and relevance of current curriculum in all branches. Strong analytical subjects. Linear algebra is a must. Probability and random process. Computational linear algebra. Computational probability. AI, pattern recognition and machine intelligence courses. Strong basics of statistics and advanced statistics like time series analysis. In fact, there's only one college in Erode where I am in the committee where we have introduced time series analysis 5 years back. Time series data analysis is the most important version of data in the world today, because every data on the mobile phone, internet is time series data. We don't teach that to students. And we need better computing environment. Python and R are very essential. Scala, so many other functional programming languages are going to dominate. And what for us, we have to move up significantly in the value chain. We need to do more design and problem solving tasks rather than bug fixing, which has been the culture of computer science curriculum for over 25 years. Solving problems of our context and our needs, like real-time solution to Bangalore traffic, which is a machine learning project given by Government of Karnataka to IAC. And significant tasks related to security, defense, and resources like monsoon. Monsoon data is being heavily used for machine learning because it is so vast, so diverse, so complicated, too many outliers, very difficult to model all that. You can have many more better than Google companies like Angola, MySchool, whatever it is you want, rather than work for Google and stuff like that. Okay. So these are the references. All this work is in this journal article, special issue. And Raghavendra Yonis is giving a talk later in the week, I'm told. And plenty of other things are there. Okay. So now we have time for questions, comments, clarifications, anything. Okay.